Hey everybody, it has been a while. I actually forgot to stream last week's race. And well, you really didn't miss a whole hell of a lot. The had a freak loss of control right before whites at Mosport. One of those I've driven it hundreds and hundreds of laps. Never had an issue. Had an issue. The only thing I can attribute it to is um, one of the practice sessions we had a little colder weather, so I upped the tire pressures like you have to, and it felt so good. I just was gonna leave it for the race, and what it ended up doing, I believe that it kind of overinflated the tires. I caught a little bit of a curb, maybe got a little too aggressive on the throttle, combination of both, and that was it. Just lost the rear end, drove straight into the wall right before whites. So that was awesome. And then the week before that was the infamous Las Vegas week. So I'm not going to race on the apron no more. Like I said, if you guys read the forums and stuff like that, I made a mistake. I apologize. Won't happen again. That's about it. At the end of the video, in the quote-unquote discussion with the folks who stayed around after that race and kind of did their best to set me straight, for all with the exception of one, they got me thinking that I hadn't read the sporting code in a long time. So I went back and I reread it, because the last time I really read it was years ago after the Daytona 24-hour roads Daytona deal, and that was whenever they changed the explanation of when and where you can race, and I could really have sworn that on NASCAR style ovals you could race on the apron, but apparently they changed that and made it black and white, which is great. I just wasn't realizing it. So, like I said, made an apology to folks. Thanked the other people that kind of set me straight and whatnot, and that was about it. So here we are. So that was that week. Had a bad finish there. Probably could have got a top 5 finish easily. Last week probably had a top 10 car, but binned it. And then there's this week. So hopefully we can keep our nose clean, just get a finish. We're losing traction in the Division 3 championship points battle. It was close, but 3 weeks of just trash racing, and I think I'm down like 100 points or something like that. So, oh well, do what we do. This is a test season anyway. This is just getting up to speed in the car, and really getting elbows deep in the changes and what kind of changes it likes and what kind of changes it doesn't like. So, so here we are in the sim. I forget exactly where I took the baseline setup from. I don't know if it was a setup that I had before, or if it was just the fixed Motegi setup, and then I adjusted it. But at any rate, it's relatively new. It's been completely updated. So, so where we are now is we're pretty close to, in race configuration, the quali pace of some of the fast guys. They were in like low to I think 26, or yeah, low 26s, and this is where we are with our race pace. The car feels stable. It feels good. It has a little bit of an understeer through turns 3 and 4, which is normal. I just made a 5th gear change. I went down one set down to 22, 26, and that's because going through 3 and 4, it's a downshift from 6th to 5th, and 5th, it just wasn't short enough to give us a good drive out of the corner, one, and number 2, the higher gear helps the car turn, and that was another added benefit for it. So essentially right there, we just did that. And if you look at the take that away. If you look at the Motec, through 3 and 4 is what I am mostly concerned about. as far as the balance, and you can see right over here, we are not very balanced as far as the dynamic of the car, and we have, that's a bit of that understeer that we were talking about. So there's that, and let's see, 47.3 is the dynamic balance of the car, and 44.55 is the center of pressure, or the aerodynamic center of the car. I swear I'll never get that right. Or I should say consistent. They're both right. But aerodynamic center is a lot more easy for people to understand. So those are the ride heights there, which are optimal ride heights through there. So if you watch this downforce to drag number, if you let the rear ride height come up, you start losing efficiency. Whereas if you go down, it peaks at 69, 67, 63. See, it goes up, peaks, and then back down again. So you know where your peak rear ride height is for a certain front ride height. So the front ride height you want to get as low as possible without scraping. And then, excuse me, and then the rear ride height you want to optimize it. So that is what we did. And that's super important, because you want to maintain the maximum amount of grip that you can, but you want to keep it as efficient as possible. So for however much downforce we have dialed into the car, you want that to be as efficient as possible. So you dial in the downforce and get the aerodynamic center in the sweet spot that you like, and then from there you can mess around with figure out what the optimal ride height is, and then go into your push rod lengths here in the back and move the car up and down until you get under load that right there. So you can maximize the efficiency of the aerodynamics through the through the corners. So other than that, I haven't really gotten to the drivetrain or the dampers yet. They're all 50-50, as we like to call it. If you guys are new to the stream, or if you haven't seen some of those other things, all shocks have an upper and lower range. The higher the number, the more damping you get, which means the harder the shock is to either compress or extend. So in the Indycar, 0 is max damped. It is the strongest resistance, and minus 23 is the lowest number, which means it has the least amount of damping and the least amount of resistance. So what I like to do is set what we call 50-50, which is right in the middle, and tune the entire chassis as much as possible until we get the fundamentally sound setup, and then we move on to the dampers. The difference between road car version of the IR18 and the oval is that we run what we call a spool. There's no adjustable differential in this car, so there's no preload, there's no clutch plates, there's no nothing. It's a spool. Now, people think of a spool as like, I have no idea what you would even consider what a spool would be. You know, like, well, here, thread. You know, like for sewing, that circle that the thread is wrapped around, that's called a spool. Okay, that is exactly what is in the back of these cars. So you have this. It's essentially. Different cars are different, but like in stock cars, they look like a little pumpkin. Okay, well, actually, not even a little pumpkin. They look like oh, how can I put it? You have the ring gear that goes around this thing, and it looks like a tube. Then it gets fat, and then it comes back down into. Actually, you know what? I'll just show you. For God's sakes, it'll just be easier for me to show you. There. That's what a full spool is. Okay. Um, as you can see, the ring gear goes on to that, and I'm assuming the Indycar is somewhat of the same concept. So the ring gear goes through that. Let me see if I can get some decent photographs of it. Let me get some good images here. All right. So that's a Ford right there. Most of these are for Fords because that's what I put in, Ford 9 spool. So so that's what that is. So essentially the ring gear, as you can see here, gets bolted on to that. And then the drive shafts go in there, or I should say even in there. And then that would be that end of the hole. And inside of that hole, it's all splined. I can't see any. There. You see how it's splined? So the axles will go in there and they'll be splined. So I'm sure the Indycar is a little bit different because of the way the rear suspension is how it's independent. So they probably have a bunch of different axles that go on the back that have like universal joints and stuff that go in there to allow the rear end to go up and down or to travel up and down. So that's the basic. So that's when you say full spool, that's a full spool. And as you can see, there's nothing there. There's no clutch plates. There's nothing to adjust. There's no springs. There ain't nothing. It is a solid piece of machined steel. So there's no. So the axles are locked together. Okay, so that's what that is. So that's a spool. So what I just did is come back over here to the telemetry here. You can see we've still got a lot of spread between the on the right side tires. This isn't that bad. The right rear isn't bad. The left front still has a little bit in it, so I dialed some of that out. The left sides we're stuck because these are the minimums that you can do on the front. I think this is about the minimum you can do on the back too. Yeah, that's as much as you can do. Can't do anything more. It's stuck at 53. So there's that. So you're stuck on the left sides with what you got. I'm going to be doing a little bit of experimenting with the left side tires. And I'll show you here in a second why. As we said, these temperatures in the garage are all what we call carcass temperatures from a barometer probe that we stick into the car. That's how we would get these in the real world. How iRacing does it is completely different. So what we do in iRacing is that each one of these temperatures represents an average of a certain amount of tread width on the tire. So if you have, say, a 12-inch tire and that tire is divided up into 1-inch segments, so you may have 4, 4, 4 segments that are averaged to give you that number. Okay, that's just a simple explanation for it. It may not be 100% accurate as how many segments make up a tire, or I call them slices as well. Still waiting on iRacing to get back to me. I'm going to go a little different route and try and do an end around around support, the support email, because I really didn't get very far. So the difference between these numbers here and the numbers that you get in telemetry, they're very different. So you can't adjust tire pressures based on these temperatures. You can't, because the segments between the outer and the middle get all kind of jumbled up, and it's not an accurate way to test tires, the proper tire pressure. I'll show you this whenever we get into the tire tutorial. Whenever iRacing gets back with some answers. Like I said, I'm going to email some people today directly, and I'm going to see what I can get, so I can get onto that, because I have some other tutorials that I want to put out too. But like I said, I'm just happy getting back into iRacing much more as compared to when the racing season was, because I didn't get to do this hardly at all. So I'm kind of just not spamming, binge playing iRacing. So, all right, so let's get back out on the track here and run some laps and just see how much we gained. Here, I'll put iRacing back on because I think the screen probably went black again. So sorry. That wasn't a pick. That was a scrape because it was itchy. Nectar of the Gods number 2. I already had my monster this morning. This track is notorious for lack of grip. Absolutely notorious for lack of grip. So on this track, it's kind of like it's Darlington-esque. It's shaped like an egg. Turns 3 and 4 are much less. The radius in turns 3 and 4 are much smaller than the radius in turns 1 and 2. So how I approach this track is turns 3 and 4 are the most important. Because the larger radius in turns 1 and 2 allow you to carry more speed, which gives you more downforce, which kind of makes everything happy. So you cannot pay that much attention to 1 and 2. So 3 and 4 become the most important turns on this track. So the dynamic balance too, I forgot. I cut down on I went down 100 pounds on the left front spring, and I increased the right rear spring by 100. And we're going to see how that works out for us dynamically. If you're still a little boggy, to see my throttle stick, or like the throttle go to half throttle in a place where it shouldn't go to half throttle. I still have gotten around to fixing that. I'm swapping out all the electronics and that's going to handle the P2s. So that isn't talking. So that isn't my driving style. So essentially what I'm going to be doing here is determining the optimal amount of camber thrust. Okay. Camber thrust, if you don't know from one of the previous tutorial, is how much paint that you put into the tire through the middle of the corner. Some people may think that, oh, I want a contact patch going from the corner, because the more the
I believe it's over. Come to the garage stall.
I'm in an official session, by the way, so I guess that's not. The more contact patches is on the ground, the more grip you should have, the faster you should be able to go, right? Wrong. No. If you think about it as you're running down the street and you want to go around a 90-degree turn, when you put your foot down, you don't put it flat. You kind of dig in the inside portions of your feet to the turn. So like you're going around a left-hand turn like this, you're digging in like the right side, or see the inside of your right foot, you're digging that in a little bit, and then you're digging in the outside of your left foot. So that'll actually make you go faster. So that's what camber thrust is, and it kind of determined that. So if you look at the laps that I just did, all 27.1s, 27.1, I still didn't get to go as fast as I had. I wasn't in the 26s that much. And believe it or not, there's only like a click or two. So you can come over here and look and see it's even, or as even as you're probably going to get it. So, you know, that's not bad. So I don't mind that, because that, in IndyCar, everything's so tight. Like, you may keep that, the wear halfway decent, but if these inside wear goes a little bit more, then the average wear of the tire is going to go down. So if you overwork the inside of these with too much camber, not only are you robbing yourself of the longevity of the tire, you're also hobbling the capability of the tire, because you're only using 2/3 of it. So it's a double-edged sword in a very bad way, because not only are you only utilizing less of the possible tire, or the potential tire, you're only using, say, 2/3 of it, you're wearing out those 2/3 faster. So I may not have been as fast out of the gate, but I may be faster over the long run. So I'm going to keep that. So we're going to save Motegi, and then that is going to be that. So we still got 12 minutes here. So let's come out and see what the telemetry says for those changes. And let me come over and let me get out of iRacing so you guys can see what I'm doing. So here's that. So here's where we were in turns 3 and 4. Like you can't really see it, but you can see up here is like the last portion of that particular lap, which is right. Well, that's all highlighted. So this all in here is what is represented in that green box. So you can see coming into turn 3 and 4, the temperature starts building up, and then it peaks as you're about 2/3 of the way through the corner, and then it'll tapers off as the banking goes away and you start going back down the straightaway. So as you can see, the left front, I mean, we were 97, 91, so we're 6 degrees off, 6 degrees off. So let's see where we are with the small changes that we made. And when I say small, it was like one click. We leaned the tires, we stood the tires up, one click. So so here we are there, 81, 74, 75, 69. So it's still 6 degrees of tire temperature change, but it isn't bad. We got better wear out of the tire. So in my head, 6 degrees of change, or I should say a 6 degree spread between the inside and the outside of the right side tires is a sweet spot. Okay, so in your notebook, you would write that down. In here, what you can do is you can make another math channel, and you can say, use a conditional kind of things, conditional expression. So here's the mass over here. You can add an expression. I'll bring it back in here. Okay, so when you add an expression in the math, you can come down, and you can come down here in these functions, and I believe there should be if-thens. Just depends on where it's at. Some of these call these things different. I think the if-then is choose. Yeah. If you're familiar with any kind of coding or anything like that, you have if-then statements. So if X is true, then do this, or then show this. So we can do it like this. So we could say, and I normally would do this on a sheet of paper. I'm doing this on the fly. So you could say, so choose if RF temp left minus RF temp right is say equals 6. I'm just doing this on the fly. Then you can say type good. Okay. Let me see if that works or not. It's been a long time since I've done this, so equals 6. Then good else. Like I said, this probably won't work. I'd have to mess with it because this is one of those parameters on in the game that I haven't, or in the Motegi that I haven't. This is just a thing. Yeah, it ain't gonna let me do it. So at any rate, you can do something like that. Or what you can do is you can make a simple math that says just subtract these two values, and it'll give you a number. And then you can add another math that just says 6, and you can put those both onto a dial or something like that, and you can see where you are and compares to like 6. But that's kind of here and there. I really hate to show you that, but take up a lot of time doing it. You know what? Hell with it. Let's do it. I'll show you how to make another expression. All right, so we're going to add an expression here. We're going to call this right front temp spread. All right, so this is going to be temperature. Okay, don't need Kelvin. Use Fahrenheit. And then you can use, let's see, RF temp left minus RF temp right Okay, so that's going to be your temperature spread. Okay, so when you come down here, you can go, let's add a gauge and a dial. And then you can go, there's the one we just made. Temperature scale, manual scale, we can go minus 30 to plus 30. I mean, okay. Alarm, this may be a little different than, I'll have to look into that because this is new. This is a new version of Motegi for me, but heck with it. We'll do that. All right, so there's that right there, right? Okay, so can we add another dial to this? No. But what we can do is this. Make a color band. Make a color band. All right, so positive would be, well, let's just make the green one good. All right, let's hit that up. So good is between, let's just say 5. Let's say 5, just for the hell of it, and 7. Okay, let's just see how that works out. It don't. You son of the beach. Okay. Properties. No. Huh. Hey, where the hell did that go? You know. Okay. 5, 7. Oh wait, no. 7, 5. Let's try that. Green. Okay, so that's what we want. Is it a bit? There it is. All right, cool. So as you're going through the corner, and this all probably needs to be resized and whatnot, you can see when you get into the good range there, right? So, you know, as you're going through the middle of the corner, that's kind of where you want your temperature spread to be. All right, so long-winded thing, but this is how, like, you can quote unquote make a crew chief. All right, so if you do all of these types of things right here, making these kinds of indicators, you can at a glance see what you need to do to the car. Okay, so like if this was really cattywampus off, and say like it was 15 or 30, over this whole thing. So like if you're going through the corner and you were over here, you can see that's not enough. You need to lean that tire in more. Especially if it's like that, it's freaking backwards. But so then when you get in the corner, it comes back up into that green area, and you can say, cool, my camera's good, or my camber's bad, or whatever. So those are easy ways to do that. And you can see here too, this is set for road. I'm going to increase the range of these. So 30 is going to be the top. It's probably going to be like 65 or 70. And I'll make additional zones in here for hot and cold. So I'll know that this is cold, or this is good for road, and then I'll make another green one further up the scale there. But I also came in here and did this too. And these will be a little bit different. I'll explain these. It's some other time, but use a math that I created called cornering force, which is the weight of the car, the dynamic weight. So like in here, the dynamic loading. So you add up all these, okay? And then you multiply that by the amount of G-forces that you got going on, and then you will end up with your cornering force, the amount of force being acted upon the car. And you can see where the maximum amount of cornering force is going to occur given the tire pressure across the bottom. So you can, again, at a glance, say at this hot pressure, I get the most cornering force. Okay, so that's another way that you can go ahead and do this. So this is nothing more than a scatter plot. At least I think it's scatter plot. Scatter plot, yeah. So that's one of the ways you can do that. So you can figure that out. So, all right. So that's a little bit of the Motegage. So we're good with the setup there. So let's just go back and about 2 hours before the race starts. And if you come into the results, this is the Monday soft race. What was this? 8 p.m. Yeah. And was there anything on Tuesday? No, there wasn't anything on Tuesday. But if you come into the Monday soft race, you can see 26.7, 26.8, and I was running, what was it, 27.0? What the hell was I running here? Yeah, 26.9, 26.9 by myself. Okay, so that just depends on how freaking hot was this. So it was 80, okay, with clear skies, and that's gonna cut down your time massively. So what we can do is come in here, do a little bit of testing. I was fooling around with the old car. No, Sons of the Beach. There. Twin ring Motegi. Where you at? Twin ring Motegi. That, and let's 80. Let's clear. What was the rest of this shit? Northeast at 7. 80% relative humidity. So northeast at 7. 80%. Northeast 7. Relative humidity was like 80%. Okay, so track state. Let's crush that up there about 40. I mean, see what happens. Okay, so then we'll just test this. We'll see where we stack up. And then what we can also do is we can start making tire pressure changes. Because the test session that we were just in, I do believe, was around 73, 75. So we'll see where we are. And obviously this isn't completely 100% accurate because we're not in a draft. So we may be faster in a draft, we may be slower in a draft. The car may be completely evil in a draft. And one of the main reasons why this car will get evil when you're in a draft and you're starting to go faster, from what I saw from a couple seasons ago, I ran a Las Vegas race, and on the road version of the car, the aerodynamic center, as I said in the tutorials, the setup tutorials, is you want the center of pressure directly over top of the center of gravity. So they work in conjunction with each other, and you don't want to ever have the center of pressure or the aerodynamic center in front of the center of gravity. You always want it behind. In the oval car, and on the road car, you want it on top or just behind by maybe 0.5%. In the oval applications, how the hell did I fit? Oh, I know what I did. Load up the damn wrong version of track and probably did the road. In the oval, you want a lot more further back for the center of pressure. Yeah, Grand Prix, I'm a moron. Okay, there we go. Yay. You want it a lot further back because it makes the car a lot more stable. On the road side, the further back the aerodynamic center is from the center of gravity, the more understeer you get, the more aerodynamic understeer you get. And so that's the road side. And the oval side, you want it further back by a couple percentage points at least. And then there's like then you can inch it up and inch it back from back there, but you don't want it. You don't want the aerodynamic center as close to the center of gravity in the oval as you do the road. So. Cool. So here we are. Actually, I want to see. So we're good. Track temp 111. So you're talking 30-ish degrees, if not a little more, higher of tire or track temp than you did in that previous testing session that we were just at. Already you can tell there's a lot less grip. So that's probably a tire pressure change. Feels like it's an aerodynamic So, how's this going to work? Well, we're going to look at the dynamic weight transfer again. And it's going to be the same, or very close to the same as the cold track. And the car rolls over, because the car weighs the same. The amount of track temperature doesn't change how much the car weighs. It does change the density of the density of the air, which does change the amount of downforce the car produces. Sure, so it does maybe 50 more pounds. At any rate, there is a little more weight, but essentially the car still is going to transfer weight the same way as it did before. The hot temperature doesn't change the spring rates of the suspension springs. That's going to work. So it will probably be an aerodynamic. So let's bring it up to the pits. Tires a little bit. Let's do that. See where we're at. So 53.49. Okay. So what that tells me is that the car is still relatively dynamically balanced, which is good. Actually, we didn't even look at the last run in the other car, or in the last session. So let's come back into turns 3 and 4 again, and let's see how that looks like. Okay. So whenever I'm checking this, like I don't add, see where it starts coming down here, and the loading comes off of the car, because you're essentially starting to come down the front straight. I will back that up until the lines are essentially flat, and you can see where we enter the corner back over here, and then the load essentially starts to get us on, get on the suspension right about there. So we'll do that. So 22. See, we're still 200 pounds heavier in the back or in the front than we are in the back. So we tried a suspension change, or we tried a spring change, and that really didn't do a whole heck of a lot apparently. Matter of fact, it probably made the damn thing worse. Wait a second. 141, 132. Oh. We were using the wrong 27,156, 27. Okay, so those are going to be the two that we're going to use. We're going to use these two to compare. All right. So right about there. Good enough. Good enough. Okay. So 2172 in 2018. That was before the actual spring change. And you come down here to roughly the same speed, the same lap time. We'll see. So 2172, 2018. $22.69, 1966. So that was the change that we were looking for. Okay, that wasn't the change we were looking for. So what does that tell us? What that tells us is that we're going to go back on the change we did, 55, 56. And we went up there. 35. Okay, so we're gonna reverse those changes, and that A is going to help with the oversteer that we're feeling, especially in these, in this temperature. And then, like I said, it's mostly aerodynamic, but we still need to take some cross weight out of it. So when the spring rates didn't do much, now you start looking at other stuff like the ballast or your cross weight. So you can try both. Doesn't really matter, but we're going to save this as that. And we will try, just for grins, crossweight first. So let's see. We need more to the left front, which means that we'll loosen the car up. And we'll put the preload back down to 0 because I like preload at 0. And that's a fine, extra super fine tweak to the car. If we weren't like level going through the corners, then I would look at that even a little bit more. But as you can see, going through the corners, where's the roll at? Chassis roll. Okay, the chassis roll is essentially, we got a little more on the front than we do on the side, don't we? Very interesting. So the front's outrolling the rear. Okay. All right, so if we take the wedge out of it, that's going to help that. Because we put more weight on the right rear and we put more weight on the left front. So that means the more weight on the left front is going to keep the weight from transferring across the front axle, and the more weight on the right rear is going to increase the roll on the right rear of the axle, on the right side of the rear axle. So we'll get a little more. So all right, so there's that. Let's go out and see what we got back in iRacing. Come on. Go back to full screen here. I'm probably also going to start streaming some F1 2018 from Codemasters, which is surprisingly a good freaking game. It's a great balance between realism and fun. I have a blast with it. I really enjoy that. I'm in the middle of a championship now. I have the AI set at 60%. Sawing on the wheel. That's hard anyways. That's most we can do back there, so let's start dialing in. We're at 6, right? Yeah, we're at 6. So let's dial out 1/4%-ish. Because we went from 3.769. Did we just get more? Yeah, we got more. That's interesting. Wait, where the hell were we? 55. Let's get on 23. All right. So what we actually did was we dialed in more rear downforce, which should help the car keep the back end from sliding around the corners. And to move the aerodynamic center further back, the center of gravity of the car, so that should introduce a little bit of understeer. so stable in back that I overrode the entry until they still haven't messed around with dampers yet. That's what helped the traction immensely. So we're getting a lot closer on that. So I'm actually going to say this is track temp 110. Okay, so that way I know that's the hotter of the two. So let's come back over to drivetrain. Let's go big. Let's get this stretched out a little bit. Actually no, I want to keep that. So there's that. Let's come look at the dampers. All right. So if you guys haven't been around and saw the other portion of the tutorial where we did damper tuning utilizing shock histograms, I'm fixing to do that right now. So can open up these ones, and as you can see, the roll actually got a little bit better, I think. Let me see what it looks like over here as everything gets yeah, it's a little bit better, so that helped us. Dynamic loading is There we go. It's a lot closer than what the heck it was. Yay. So really, like I said, all we need is the shocks, and maybe move the arrow a little further back, and then that'll be that. And then we should be good. So, okay, shock histograms. As you can see here on the screen, you have all four corners of the car, so you have all four dampers or shocks on the car. Okay. Everything inside the shaded area, okay, is your low speed suspension travel, okay, or velocity. And how fast it's moving in compression, how fast you are squeezing the shock together, and then on the left-hand side of each of these corners is the rebound, which is the shock extending, how much time it is spending extending. And what you normally want is you want both of those numbers to be equal. And you want all four of these numbers to be really close in the ballpark. So when you say low speed and high speed in regards to the velocity of the shock travel, the low speed stuff has to do with normal transient motion of the chassis going around corners. The chassis itself, and especially on an oval, compressing into the corners, the banking comes in and the car starts loading up as it goes into the banking. And then as it extends, as it comes out, as the banking falls away and the car loses the load and it uncompresses coming out of the corner on corner exit. That is what all this is. Okay, the high speed stuff is actually bumps in the track, okay, imperfections in the track. So at Motegi, this is a really awesome track to pay attention to the high-speed stuff because there's a very, very bumpy track, kind of like Atlanta is a very, very bumpy track. And the bumps go all throughout the corner, especially turn 1 and 2. If you can increase your traction and compliance of the tire by optimizing your high-speed bump and your high-speed rebound, you're going to gain some speed. So we're going to do that. So what I normally first do is I start with the low speed, and I start with the right front tire. So we're at 24.6, or I'm sorry, 24.6 and 22.2, and then the rest of everything is kind of high. So everything's ballpark in the mid-20s. So that's low. So what we're going to do is we're going to increase the compression on the right front. And what that is going to do is I increase by 5 because this is a pretty wide range of adjustment. So 5 clicks of adjustment, dialing in bump, which adds resistance, adds damping. Damping and resistance, you can think of the same interchangeable terms. So it should take longer for the suspension or for the shock to compress, which means this percentage of time that it spends in compression is going to go up because it spends more time there. All right. So in the back here, looks like the right rear is pretty fast in both sides. It's relatively even, but it's still pretty fast. So let's increase the damping, the low speed damping on both of these. Okay. And then come back over here real quick, and you can see the bump is still a little bit more, a little faster. So we'll increase that click right there. And believe me, when you go back out on when I go back on the track, I'm gonna have to relearn how to drive this car again. So let's go to the left rear. We're in the mid-20s, just like we wanted to, but this looks to be a little bit on the stiff side. So we're gonna come back in here, and we may reduce the low speed rebound by 5. Reduce that by 5, but we're going to go down even some more on the compression because the compression is higher. So it spends more time there, so we need to speed that up. So we'll take damping away. Okay, so then here is almost the same thing. The 25 looks good on the compression, and bump. Bump and compression are interchangeable terms. So in rebound, we're still in rebound for too long. Way too long, actually. So the low speed rebound on the left front should probably come down a decent amount. We'll just try 5 for now. Okay. So now let's go back and look at the high speed stuff. So overall, mid-20s again. Mid to low 20s here, low 20s over here. Okay. So these are pretty close. We can, since most of these are on the low side of 20s, we're going to try and bring the compression down and the rebound down. So we need less high speed on both, but if I am not mistaken, you had more in the back, but just a tick of high speed rebound. So maybe 1 click. Right rear, same thing. But we're gonna take away this high speed bump or high speed compression. We'll do that. Oops, not that bad. So there. We're not too bad here. We'll add in some high speed compression. Just 3 clicks. And like, see, this isn't exactly like brain surgery, but we're pretty fast over here on the left front, which makes sense because the left front is the least loaded tire of the car, so there's a lot less loading on it, which means there's a lot less weight for that corner suspension to work with, so it can move it around faster. So let's and they're pretty darn close together again, so let's just come up on the high speed stuff, increase that, and where were we? Bink for good measure. Okay, so now we've done the shocks. So let's go back into the sim and see what we got and if we can still drive the damn thing. And if we get any kind of increase. Oh, arrow. Attack pit exit a lot more than I could before when I first got into the session. And I don't know if you can notice the steering wheel and the controls. So I can't drive top to the time. But the car feels like it's not skipping over bumps anymore. Okay? So the car is much more compliant with the turns, and as you can see, that results in pretty good lap time. So, awesome. So we got a pretty balanced car. We've overdriven turn 3, one more Gallaudet turn. We've adjusted the dampers. We got the center of pressure, our aerodynamic center, and CG spread right, and the car feels very, very nice. So what we can do in the sim or in the race is, if we figure out in traffic that we need to move that center of pressure back up again, the aerodynamic center back up again, we can do that with wing adjustment in the race. So we'll see how that works out. But I would rather start off with the aerodynamic center further back and have understeer, which is a lot more manageable than oversteer, versus having a unruly, evil car whenever we get into the actual race. So, okay, we're gonna save all this. So what I'm also gonna do is I'm gonna write down my numbers here for the dampers. Good. All right, so I wrote down everything as far as that goes, and I'm going to transfer that over to the other setup with the that was done like in more crap, I didn't want to do that, in colder track conditions. So technically what you should be doing is, I did say I wanted to test some some tire pressure stuff too, and I want to show you why I'm going to do that. If you guys were if you guys watched the if you guys watched the tutorial that I did on telemetry, I'm pretty sure I explained to you the difference between these tire temperatures versus the tire temperatures that you see in the garage in the sim. So let me take iRacing back off so you can see what I'm saying. Okay, so these tire temperatures are different than these tire temperatures. Obviously, you can see that, okay? Like I said, these are what we call carcass temperatures, and they are the averages of a certain amount of slices throughout the tire to comprise each one of these. And when you get into telemetry, these are points, very specific points of surface temperature, okay? So what the hell does that mean? In the real world, when we get off the track, when we come into the pits and we break out the pyrometer, which is nothing more than like it looks like a pen with a thin metal probe that sticks out the front. It's essentially a thermometer, and you stick that into the tire, and you'll get a temperature reading, and that temperature reading tells you the dynamic balance of the car, especially on the right sides, because I do oval track stuff. So if the right front is hotter than the right rear, then that means that we have an unbalanced race car, and we need to address that. What it also does is that it tells you the spread, like we talked about earlier, between the inside and the outside tire. And after a lot of testing and trial and error, you figure out what the best spread is that gives you the best handling and the best speed. But what it also does is it tells you, when you look at the inside, the outside versus the middle, it tells you whether or not your tires are inflated properly. So if you have hotter center middle tire temperatures, that means you started off, your tire pressure is too high, and the tire itself is bulging like that. So, you know, the middle is in more contact with the ground, and it's working harder than the outside edges, and the inside gets tire temps. But if it's underinflated, it would look like that, and the outside edges are being worked more than the inside. So that's what we look at here. But what I really wanted to look at and experiment with is if you can use these point temperatures as a parameter, like how we used it for a parameter. So like these are still pretty high. Ideally, what you would want, and this is a really good example. So 181, 186, you add them together and you divide it by 2 and you take the average. So what would that be? About 183, 184, technically 182.5, I guess. So say like 183. You would want that to be 183. And that way you would know that your hot tire pressures are optimal for the given camber in the car. So right now it shows that we are probably a little overinflated on all of these tires. So we're going to try this out and we're going to see if it changes anything. But first things first, need to write down the ride heights because these race cars, the pressures change the ride height. So 1.436, 0.928, and then the ass end is 1.563. Okay. We're going to change everything equally. And the reason why we're going to change everything equally is because we already have the car balanced. Okay? And if you start changing... Did I change that? Yeah. At any rate, when you start changing these asymmetrically, you start changing the dynamic balance of the car because tires are springs. They're essentially springs. They're just big airbag springs. So when you change the air pressure, you change how much the tire is going to compress, thus you change its spring rate. Tires actually have spring rates. So bring these down by 2 just for grins. Let's see how that works. And go back in here and pretty close. All right. Let's go back out on track and see how we're doing. Because on a hotter track, you want to set the tires lower because the heat in the track is going to make the tires grow more. Versus a cold track where the tires aren't going to grow as quickly. Now, will this change the damper settings that we just did? A little. But not to the point where, you know, you just throw everything out. Minimize the damper stuff. get turn 4. Or the entry turns 3 and 4. Where are we? Pretty even. Even on the tire wear. Even on the left side, you're still halfway decent on tire wear. Not bad. So, here we are. Not bad. I'm going to save that. Now what I'm going to do is I don't want to go too low because we're already about as low as you possibly can go. Let's go take a look and see what this did to those tire temperatures in telemetry. So let's load up that last run and see what we got going on. Okay, so here's the big thing. We've gotten the tire temperatures up a lot further, and we really haven't been able to bring those down that much. Where were we at? 27.8. That was lap 5. Let's see what that lap 5 was. So it did bring the tire temperatures up a little more into what I would say would be a more operating range. Usually tire temps like to be around the 200 degree mark, if not maybe even a little bit more. But we did that, and we really didn't compromise. We didn't really see that much of a change. Let's see, 179, 167. So the average of these two, you'd want to see 173. So right now, we're 9 up. Let's see what we did on this one. So remember 9. 183. So now we're only 8 up. Did it help? A little bit. Just a tick. So we're good. But what you can also see is that we probably were more than that optimal camber, the temperature spread. Let's see, 97. What's that? 8 instead of 6. Close enough for government work. All right, so we're going to leave that. I got the NASCAR practice on in the background. I guess Kyle Larson just wrecked himself. So cool. All right. So that'll be our Motegi car. Let's load this one. And let's do these dampers here. We'll bring everything over. 7, 17. Okay. So we'll save that. We'll save that as track temp 80. All right. So there we go. It's about 10 to 3. And I want to go get myself ready for the race. So tune back in for the race at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So in about 2 minutes and 7 minutes. 2 hours and, no, hour and 7 minutes. See you then.